To all my warlocks, hunters and crayon munchers, it's Davsky here coming to you with another Destiny 2 Beyond Light video. Today we're taking a look at Ager's Scepter. That's the new exotic trace rifle in Season of the Lost. It just went into the game this past reset on Tuesday. I'm loving this weapon, guys. I haven't had this much fun with the weapon since Trinity Ghoul got his catalyst. You'll see why throughout this video, but let's get into it first and look at the weapon itself. So let's take a look at the perks first. We've got Ager's Call. Final blows with this weapon generate a slowing burst around the defeated target. So what this means is you'll defeat an enemy and anyone that's nearby will be affected with stacks of slow. Of course, you guys know if there's enough stacks of slow, that will then freeze the enemies. We then have Ager's Refrain. Stasis final blows transfer ammo to this weapon's magazine from reserves. So as you're killing enemies, that will keep your ammo count topped up nicely. Now guys, before we get into how this weapon performs and how I found it in testing, I just wanted to say the lore for this weapon is really good. If you like your lore, check it out. I'm not going to cover it off too much here. There's plenty of lore channels out there that will do a better job than me. But what I would say is, if the Dreaming City was Camelot, this weapon would be Excalibur. So if you like your lore, check that out. I think you guys will love it. Now when you first equip this weapon, let me tell you, you are going to feel like Mr. Freeze or Captain Cold or whoever your favourite comic book villain is. This thing feels great and it really feeds into the power fantasy. I said earlier that I haven't had this much fun with a weapon since Trinity Ghoul got his catalyst, and I think they're both similar in the way they can just mow down adds for fun. They can kill absolute hordes of enemies. Yeah, that's not always going to be the case if you're taking on mages and bosses and things like that. But for general use, as you're going through things like strikes and gambit and astral alignment and all that sort of stuff, this thing will absolutely destroy everything in its path. But it's also a lot of fun because of the freeze effect and the way that it actually synergizes with the stasis subclass. So we're going to take a look at that now and see how that works. So when I was testing this weapon, I was actually using a Shadebinder Warlock, and let me tell you, the way this thing synergizes with the Ice Flare Bolt aspect is incredible. You are going to chain freeze everything in your path. It's going to be like a new Ice Age out there. You can see here that absolutely everything is just being shattered. You can clear out adds so quick, but actually, even on some orange bar enemies, this thing still just absolutely shreds. Anything with a higher health pool than your regular red bar enemies will end up getting frozen after a couple of seconds if the damage output isn't enough to kill it anyway. So this thing has got so much utility. And this weapon pairs well with so many different stasis fragments. We're talking about things like Whisper of Bonds, Whisper of Chains, Whisper of Durance. There's too many, the list goes on. I'm not going to go into each individual one. You guys know what those fragments do, but this weapon just makes it so much easier to make the most out of those fragments. Now, this is something I tried to do with a Headstone perk recently, and yes, it worked to a point, but the difference with Headstone is it requires you to get a precision kill and then be near that stasis crystal that spawns. With this new exotic trace rifle, Ager's Scepter, all you have to do is tag the enemy with it. It applies that slow, or if you need to tag the enemy a little longer for the freeze, it's still much easier than using something like Headstone, and you can get so much utility out of all of these fragments. The other thing this pairs super well with is Focusing Lens. Now, previously with Focusing Lens, you'd have a fire team, one member would run stasis subclass to debuff the enemy, and then the other two members of the fire team would get bonus damage from using light-based abilities or supers. Well, now you don't need to do that anymore. You can run Ager's Scepter, all three of you can run light-based subclasses for the increased damage, and also this will extend to solo play as well. So if you're the kind of person that likes to do hard content solo, like solo dungeons and stuff like that, where you can take Ager's Scepter with a light-based subclass, you can tag the higher health enemies, and then you can get the bonus damage from Focusing Lens that you need to put them down. There's one other kind of hidden perk with this weapon as well, and that is it can destroy these kind of shiny coloured rock formations in the Shattered Realm, and they'll lead to new secret areas, and you'll be able to find things like Ascendant Anchors there. So is this weapon any good in PvP? Well, I did some testing with it. I gotta be honest, I think there's a lot of better options out there. It's not to say this weapon's terrible, and it's not to say that when momentum control comes around, I won't be giving this weapon another go. It's not bad at range, but any kind of short to mid-range, it's really going to get outclassed by a lot of different weapons. So I'm not saying it's completely useless in PvP, but what I would say is there's probably a lot of other options out there that you want to consider before you take Ager's Scepter into the Crucible. So overall, how good is this weapon? I think that's a really difficult question to answer until we get the Catalyst, which for those that don't know is coming on Tuesday. Now, the Catalyst is usually something for exotics that elevates them to a new level. Yes, that's not always the case, but I suspect with this weapon, it's really going to take it to the next level and really help it to fulfill its potential. So once we have the Catalyst, we can do some testing and higher level content, and then we'll know the answer to that question. What I would say is, and I've maintained throughout this video, this weapon is a lot of fun, and I like fun. I like Trinity Ghoul, I like Tiku's Divination. I don't want to use something because it's meta, just because it has a high damage output or a fast fire rate. I play the game to have fun. Yes, there's a time and a place to put those meta weapons on. You're probably not going to take this into a GM regardless, but who knows, the way it synergizes with the stasis aspects and fragments, plus focusing lens, we'll know on Tuesday once we have that Catalyst whether it's going to be a real viable option. But would I get this weapon and have fun with it? Absolutely. So there's one final thing I wanted to touch on here. We've looked at the way this weapon synergizes with the stasis subclass, and I want to talk about the light-based subclass reworks coming in the Witch Queen and beyond. So they've said already at Bungie that the new Void-based rework will be coming at the start of the Witch Queen. They've used a lot of status effects that they call verbs when they've been talking about the subclass. So they've used things like Volatile, Weaken, Devour. And I think what we're seeing here with this weapon and the Headstone perk is the start of a new system where weapon choice will really synergize well with your subclasses. So let's take the Void example and use what Bungie call verbs, and we talk about, let's say, Weaken. Well, do I want a weapon that applies Weaken on headshot? Yeah, I do. Do I want fragments on the Void subclass that give me plus 20% movement speed when near an enemy that's been debuffed with Weaken? Yeah, I do. So I think when we look at what's happening here, I think we can see the potential for the future and the way Bungie are going to go with those light-based subclasses. And I've got to be honest, guys, I think that's really exciting. Because right now, I don't pick my weapon based off of my subclass necessarily. But would I like to do that as an option? Yeah, I really would. I think there's a lot of interesting combinations, and I think the possibilities are endless once all those subclasses have been reworked. That's it from me today, guys. If you liked the video, please hit that like button. If you've got the weapon, please let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. I'd love to know how you're getting on with it, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. And if you want to see more Destiny 2 content from me, keep it locked, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all next time.